What up, my freaks? RuinusInsight here with part 6 of my Total War Warhammer 3 modded Not Grimbrindle Thorgrim Grudgebearer Old World campaign. So as we saw last time, we continue beating back the, well, at the very least, the Skaven in our southern territories now around Karaz-a-Karak. Clan Mordkin has been destroyed or otherwise confederated by Clan Rictus. But at the very least, their armies have been defeated. Unfortunately, the orcs have arrived right on time and have attacked Drippin' Fang's camp. But, well, once again, we continue moving southward. We've taken Gribbletown at last and are looking to wipe out the Clan Rictus Skaven, whose balance of power clearly we've reduced pretty darn significantly. They've gone down to strength rank 284, and if we push them hard, /giggle, they won't have a chance to recover. In addition to that, Azazel decided to attack us from two directions against /giggle, and we were able to defeat both of those armies. Now, we don't know whether more armies are coming, but if they aren't, depending, I mean, his balance of power is also looking pretty weak. We might be able to take the opportunity to try to jump over the mountains and then head to the Var Camp, and, well, this Var Camp, which is owned by Azazel, and try to knock out the Varg and maybe even Azazel's main stack, if possible, or main settlement if possible, and just to cripple their capabilities. And ideally to wipe out the factions, but I believe Azazel has 3 territories and... No, he has 2. Okay, now we can deal with 2. This one should be relatively easy. Well, we'll see. It really depends on whether this army can do it. It doesn't have any artillery either, which means the walls at Camp Varg, or Varg Camp, would prove an issue. But anyway. For now we gotta get going. It is a new turn. I did end the turn between the episodes. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to end the turn so that I didn't have to edit it. So it's a new turn. Gribbletown has a little Skaven rebel army building up. That's fine. That's working well for us, as we want the rebellion to give us additional public order. Thorgrim, you are going to head as close to Crookback Mountain as you can, as that is your next destination. Ah, okay, no, that's not an army. It's just a Chaos Dwarf faction, who I guess we just identified. Next, we know that the Greenskins here attack Drippin' Fang's camp. I don't see the raiding camp anywhere. Huh, usually they have this like little, oh, there it is. Huh, usually it's visible through the fog of war. Maybe Greenskins' raiding camp stance is unique? Okay, well at least we've sighted this guy. Alright, Joseph of Zorn, how about you? What we'll do with you is we'll put you to the edge of this territory, and then maybe we can get an ambush going against Dusty here. Might work out if he's gonna go for this territory. We'll find out. But if he doesn't, what we'll do is we'll move Grimbrindle in, and you gotta make sure that he's actually... There you go. Move Grimbrindle in march stance. If this guy tries to return to Drippin' Fang's camp, he should also be relatively slow in this territory. You can't slow armies, can you? Just out of curiosity now. And due to the fact that we currently have Purge the Urks up and running, and that's actually what we're trying to do, purge those darn Urks. And then after this main stack is destroyed, assuming it doesn't take like 8 years to catch that army, we'll try to proceed down towards this guy's other territories. And he's down to 3 now. I wonder if he's actually having trouble with any of these other factions. I guess we'll see. For now, we're looking okay. Who's up next? Alden Halfhand, you're fine. Ulfar Norgrimling, rather. You guys. And King Lun, you're all headed southward. We're going to try to go to Skullreach Cavern. Alright, and once again, let's do a quick count of treacherous territories here. So he has currently 5 territories. Skullreach Cavern, that's 1. And then could it be that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? It's just these. This is his starting territory within Crookback Mountain. Alright, maybe it is. Maybe we should just assume that it is. And if that is the case, that means these territories would be owned by a different Skaven faction coming up from Thunder Mountain, eh? I'm just wondering where to send King Lun Ironbeard here. We should, I guess, have him move southward to scout Mount Squighorn to see if anything's over there. Since this army didn't get intercepted, I'm gonna hope that these guys can jump down as well. Like so. And like so. Without getting killed. Alright, that works. Next up, who still needs to move? Vikram, you're fine as you are, though, you know what? It might be a better idea to move you towards World's Edge Archway right now. Might have him set up in the mining camp stance here as well, so the entire province gets the mining camp stance. Braun Gundrickson, and do we have an artillery thing here? We do not. Okay, which explains why why this faction didn't have any artillery when we confederated them. You're going to go into Karaz-a-Karak, and we're going to have Braun here. Going to have you go here. Oh, so what are you again? Vengeful, right. We're going to trade everything we've got to this army. This army will eventually be split off into two, Grimbrindle's army and then another army, but until then we got things to do. You can not switch stances, but that's alright. We're going to go to Ornsmatek. And also, let's see. Alright, gotta remember that we want to grab this Tromak thing. Should be nice. We've got another Karaki here, and nothing else crazy with the runesmiths and such. Alrighty. Would really be nice to get a tier 3 one of these sparring chambers. Speaking of sparring chamber, do we want to leave it here for the miners with blasting charges? It is also nice that we got the gunsmith's forge, so we can get cannons and goblin hewers up and running. The cannons at least are quite cheap. We'll see. I mean, obviously right now our money situation is still iffy, so, but it's getting there. It's getting there, slowly but surely. Anyway, I think that's it, that's all. I think we're at least... Oh, wait. I was about to say, I assumed that I did the diplomacy last episode, but that's actually not the case, because, well, it doesn't matter, there's no diplomacy to do. Anyway, damage building we'll ignore because we don't want to spend the money, and I believe that is it. So let's end the turn. Now let's see where Dusty goes. We've got an ambush set up, we've got you waiting. Something's gotta work, right? Alrighty, freebooter for Alden Halfhand, sure, and for Scory Iron Pick as well. Campaign movement range for Braun Grundickson and for Grimbrindle. That's great. Nemesis Crown has been claimed. Now, looks like Dusty has decided to move this way. Well, that's interesting. If we could catch up to him with Grimbrindle, but then I'm willing to bet he wouldn't want to fight, eh? Alright, wait.
It is time.
If we get another flame cannon, we could definitely win this fight, but we'd need the other flame cannon. Okay, so we need to make money in order to do that. To make money, we have to attack. To attack, well, I think Thorgrim's the only one who's in range, so let's level up and let's get into it. Now, I guess Sapper for the additional missile character movement thing, then we'll go Runesmith, and you will grab, what, Rune of Wrath and Ruin? You're currently scouting for this army, right? And I forget, you have, alright, you have the Karaki, yes, it's fine. We'll ignore these two runes. I'm thinking either more cooldown reduction for Rune of Wrath and Ruin, or more cooldown reduction for either one of these. I'm gonna say Rune of Oath and Steel, because well... A moment. I think here that's super critical. I wouldn't say anything that's super critical. Oh, it would be nice to eventually head through the arm to get the bonus armor-piercing weapon damage for everybody, but that's an eventuality. Oh, no, right, we gotta go through Retinue Valet in order to get Retinue Physician. I almost forgot that. Alright. Gotta remember that the runesmiths have that. It's pretty darn important. Anyway, I assume that since there's an army out here and it's recruiting, that means there's a full stack in Crookback Mountain, in addition to the Crookback Mountain garrison, which is probably gonna be pretty darn decent. I assume also that, yeah, we can't head into any stands, so I guess we're just gonna jump on in.
For the Karaz Ankor.
What do we have here? Pyrrhic Victory, and they got 2 Plague Claw catapults, but we do have, you know, flying units, and Rickrick Sliceblade is there, but Tretch is obviously not because he's still wounded. Alright, we got a decent couple of stacks there. We don't have a full stack with Thorgrim, so it, I'm sure, will take at least some effort to defeat them, and hopefully we don't suffer too much casualties. Before we get started, engagement threshold reached once again, so obviously longer episode once again this time, and engagement threshold remains 400 likes and 60 comments for the next episode to be hour adjacent as well. Plus, if we continue the streak on through today, then tomorrow tomorrow, Saturday, we will do 2 episodes instead of 1. Alrighty, let's jump on and see if we can bring down Tretch's capital.
For the Devil's Crown!
Alright, here we go. This is likely Rictus's last hope, as if Crookback Mountain falls, I don't imagine they'll recover, as it's their most highly invested settlement. And on top of that, by this guy, this little master assassin sitting outside the enemy settlement, it does kind of screw the enemy army over, in that the rest of the 2 or so stacks will come in as reinforcements instead, and that's just not so great. Nor is it so great for the little assassin out here, who's going to get targeted along with some of his meat shield Skaven slaves or clan rats, whatever's out here, clan rats, by all of our flying units. And let's see, he's down to about half of his HP. And oh, come on now, I just saw the master engineer miss a shot. Not that that matters or will matter all that much, as the Master Assassin is going to be out of the picture when 30% of his HP. Thorgrim has moved in. I was going to send him in to kill off the Assassin, but clearly it isn't really necessary, and he can just bonk a few rats while he's at it, with a little bit of help from Gotrek and Felix bringing up the rear. A little bit late to the party, as usual. Master Assassin is pretty much done for with 20% of his HP remaining. A couple more volleys from our gyrocopters will take him out, and our heroes, who are not really threatened at all by the clan rats here, we'll just make sure that they are out and kill a few while they're at it. These are the Menace Below clan rats, so frankly they wouldn't have been all that big of an issue anyway, and I guess once again the enemy just doesn't want to summon them where our artillery is, because we have, as usual, the 1 unit of rear guard Longbeards, which has been sort of guarding the artillery in every single battle, but doing it quite well. Anyway, enemy reinforcements are going to move on in from this side of the map, and I guess head directly towards us. Now, we could be really mean, and we could bomb the deployment with all of our gyrocopters and pretty much destroy them all, like right here, and maybe even a Rune of Wrath and Ruin in the middle of all that, but there isn't really any need. We've seen what our artillery can do to the blobs of Skaven anyway, and more likely than not, since they're in a reinforcement army, they're going to proceed in this weird little column formation that the AI seems to do when it reinforces, and will head towards us in a blob anyway, regardless of us not taking advantage of the enemy blobbing up around the deployment zone. Which, normally they absolutely, the AI would absolutely take advantage. I've definitely seen it. Did you just summon a Menace Below right in the middle of the horde of... Yep, they did. Well, that's an interesting choice. And they have stopped in their tracks for some reason. I wonder why that is. Maybe it has to do with the Menace Below summoning? Sure. Well, we're gonna keep bombarding him. I mean, it's kind of annoying that they're doing this, but on the other hand, some of them are moving, and well, call it us taking a good position. But yeah, I've definitely seen the AI drop drop spells and such on my own units when I've deployed them, as in reinforcing units, spells, and then deploy their own units to block them and stuff, so the AI is certainly not above that sort of thing, and we're not doing it anyway, because these guys come in all the way over here. And yeah, if they're gonna stop like this, we're definitely gonna hit them. Let's maybe clear out a few of the mobs, and then maybe they'll not get in each other's way so much. Granted, the Skaven are showing off their sheer numbers, despite the explosive nature of the Grudge Throwers, with that burning rune. It's still taking a long time to do anything to that blob. Certainly not to the same effectiveness as that one flame cannon, which fried 4,000 Skaven. In the meantime, though, the enemy artillery are not protected by enemy range units, and admittedly there isn't too much in the way of range units anyway, and we're going to have our unit of gyrocopters fire parallel to their deployment and destroy all the artillery pieces, well, leaving the crew untouched, but I guess that hardly matters. Enemy is now starting to sort of separate itself from all of its units, and at least a few units have arrived in the front line, dropping a Rictus clan stone upon us. We've got our our lords and heroes facing off against theirs, a warlord and Rick Sliceblade facing off against Gotrek, Felix, and Thorgrim, who are once again out front. And hey, if it isn't a group of plague monks rushing on in to try to help these guys out. Still, don't think that's going to do too much for him. The non-sensor bearer variant of the Plague Monks don't have enough armor piercing to most likely take advantage of this. Let's actually see, though. Okay, the Everguard's kind of blocking him. Screw it, doesn't matter. Everguard's gonna bonk him to pieces. I like their sort of darker Gromrel armor and the black cloaks that they've got. It works nicely. It makes the blue on their pauldrons and vambraces pop real nicely. Good color scheme. Anyway, the enemy is, well, those enemies that survived the bombardment, as in the Skaven slaves mostly booked it on out of there, but the more elite units, the Plague Monks, the Storm Vermin, and all that sort of stuff is actually moving in to fight us, which I think is the better option anyway. Clear out the chaff with our artillery and then actually fight the units worth fighting. And of course the enemy does have a few things like bomb lobbers in the background and warp grinders and such, but as we can see they're disappearing in the background as our gyrocopters and bombers hunt them down. Bit of a brawl in the center of the map, of course. Felix is netted down, that's alright, swinging Karagul around and probably getting a few kills, 28. Alrighty, and of course the clan rats, unlike the storm vermin, are definitely not going to stay long in the fight against hammerers. Alright, and out they go. Can't wait to get a couple more Everguard in our main stack. And ooh, another Plague Claw Catapult has arrived. We're gonna let it fire a little bit just to make sure that we knock out the Death Globe Bombardiers, because I figure the Death Globes are actually going to be a bigger threat to Hammerers and Everguard and then the Plague Claws are. Granted, Plague Claws will still do a ton of damage to them if we let them, but I figure the Death Globes might be able to do more. Alrighty, and let's see. Well, the Plague Claws have no kills and 258 damage so far, so not so much, but they were having a difficult time, as weird as that may sound, actually firing upon our units while engaged with the rats. And the Skaven should absolutely take advantage of their kin, forcing the Dwarfs into a blob and firing upon them all. Alright, and even as we did wipe out so many of the enemy clan rats and such as they were moving onto the map, still plenty more fighting was to be had. The enemy artillery piece has been found by our gyrocopters now that the death globes have been destroyed. Really gotta remember to get the second unit of gyrocopters with grudge settlers in the army as well. They've been really, really helpful. And I imagine that's not going to change. Plus, I really love watching them fire those homing missile masses. Anyway, I do believe with the enemy artillery piece gone, the enemy see no hope of doing any more damage, as that was the only thing that was likely to do anything here. And thus, while the piles of clan rats and stuff distracted us, and thus the enemy army will shatter, and the battle will be ours. I'm going to chase down as much as we can, especially the enemy heroes with our gyrocopters, and pretty much any enemy elites that we can catch, and hopefully we can get Crookback Mountain with ease. Alright, I do feel bad about that, I really, really do, but what were we supposed to do? Are we not supposed to fire on the enemy? They were given plenty of opportunity to move out of the blob. We didn't even bomb them when they arrived on the map, and they still kept moving towards us in that big old blob. It's the advantage of the enemy coming in as a reinforcement rather than as the starting army, so it is what it is, at least for them. We got a lot of the, well, decent amount of the units killed, though a decent amount of them still remain, and we'll have to deal with them. Damn, 335 kills on Thorgrim's Grudgebearers. You guys vastly outdamaged all the other units of hammers and such. Well done to you. The bomber did fantastic, but it always does, especially against the Skaven. 1,000 kills and 86,000 damage, and then the grudge throwers, Well, the one with the explosive rune obviously did even better, but anyway. We'll execute and loot, even if it's surprisingly little in terms of reward. Like so, and Rickrick remains and Crookback Mountain remains, but I assume that now we'll be able to just auto-resolve it, because there's not much there anymore, right? Pyrrhic Victory? Really? I don't think this is a special location, is it? I mean, we could just fight it, I guess. I'm a little bit concerned about the Pyrrhic Victory, considering we'll want to move next turn immediately, and it might be a lot of damage. Alright, fine. I guess we'll have to fight it. Yeah, it's so little enemies. They'll have to take the time bombarding the walls down. Medium casualties. I don't like that Pyrrhic Victory thing. Alright, it is what it is. We'll try to make it as quick as possible. That's the plan, Thorgrim. That's the plan. Anyway, here we go. Sometimes I get a little bit annoyed at having to fight the same battle twice as effectively, but it isn't really the same battle in the sense that that was a field battle and this is a garrison battle, and sometimes it's cool to fight sort of a two-tiered battle, as it were, you know what I mean? Sort of take out the enemy army that sallies, and then take the settlement itself. Call it a proper assault on an enemy capital. And speaking of proper assault, look at that. We've got the gyrocopters moving in to fire parallel to the deployment of all those enemy death globes and whatever other units are up here. And the gyrocopters are absolutely obliterating them. The Poison Wind Globadiers 1 unit is out. The next one is nearly out. And of course we get a little bit of help from the Grudge Throwers as well, though they are more so working on breaching the walls instead. Ooh, Deathglow's gonna fire back at the gyrocopters. Good for them. I'm gonna help out by dropping a quick little Zafar 42-pounders on them, though I find that the ability barely does any damage whatsoever, so mostly I just drop it down because, I don't know, it looks neat and it sounds neat, and that's good enough for me. And, let's see, it looks like the Death Globes are pretty much out, the Poison Winds are pretty much out as well. Thorgrim and Gotrek and Felix are working on the enemy gate, and I do think it was the right decision to put Gotrek and Felix in Thorgrim's army temporarily. By the time they move to their own army, they should be quite high level, and thus able to handle themselves, rather than having, you know, sort of the army do all the work for them. Although I am a little bit on the fence about putting them with Malachi. The problem with putting them with Malachi, as I figure, is that his own army will always overshadow them. Ooh, nice blow from Thorgrim, the KO as the rat gets knocked out. Thorgrim's been doing good. I've definitely been enjoying him fight over the course of the campaign. I do think his axe swings are a little bit, you know, I don't know, silly, a little bit almost lazy, but he doesn't quite put as much oomph into it as, for example, we've seen the ancient Kroxigors do in the Nakai campaign, who take this big old wind-up swing, golf swing, and just obliterate an enemy unit, which we just saw last episode, which is why I'm mentioning it. And yeah, Thorgrim just towering over the enemies on his throne and just sitting there while droves of them are knocked about, it's still pretty darn entertaining. Anyways, I was saying about Gotrek and Felix, I kind of figure that we kind of want them in an army where they can shine, rather than where, you know, Malachi's machines, his Thunder Barge or Thunder Barges, the Spirit of Gluttony, and the built Thunder Barges and Gyrocopters do all the work in combination with the cannons and Slayer Pirates. Whereas if we build a sort of single entity army with, you know, minimal amounts of units, maybe a single unit of Everguard just for fun, to sort of commemorate how they were with Thorgrim at the start, and they could do a sort of super elite, a little mini fighting, brawling force instead, with of course a few dwarfen lords and heroes as well. And maybe some demon slayers or dragon slayers for Gotrek, maybe some... Oh, definitely some runesmiths to get his armor up and running. But yeah, certainly something to think about. Anyway, it'll be a ways away while we continue leveling them with Thorgrim, who is still working through those rats by himself. We are, well, we were working through the gate, but it's taking a long time to bring down, and it looks like it's not needed as Thorgrim has captured it. Gotrek and Felix have moved in, and we're getting ready to move our various units of hammers in to join him. The gyrocopters continue to cause absolute havoc in the background as they've killed off the enemy artillery piece and are just hunting down enemy elites as they go. Still, the brawl continues, and it's always fun. A nice little sort of space opened up around Gotrek, Felix, and Thorgrim. And this is kind of what I want for Gotrek and Felix's army, you know, where they can stand at the forefront of actual fights rather than everybody getting gunned down. Don't want to do a disservice to them and all that. Especially since generally in campaigns I've run, they've had a bad habit of getting acquired a little bit too late and then not having the chance to do all that much. Being sort of afterthoughts to their armies. Alright, and of course, as the Hammerers have arrived to wade into combat with their High King, the enemies start losing their numbers very rapidly, though Thorgrim's racked up 134 kills, and pretty solidly. He does have that Rune of Spite on him, of course, so he's tanky, and he's able to do area of effect damage. And, ooh, does look like, oh, okay, never mind. I thought I saw, huh. Okay, I guess I'm seeing things. I thought I saw one of the gyrocopters were heavily damaged, but the HP bar of one of the routing units must have been the thing that I saw. Anyway, bounce power's at about 85% in our favor, and I think the fall of Crookback Mountain, or retaking of Crookback Mountain, is all but assured. Gonna give chase to the clan rats and Skaven slaves across the bridge, while the gyrocopters continue dropping ordnance from up above. Haven't even really relied on dropping bombs from the gyro bomber as yet, as it hasn't even been needed. Yeah, and the rats are sort of milling around, unsure what to do. Plague Claw catapults have returned, but unfortunately, as we've found out, the gyrocopters with those torpedoes are fantastic at knocking out artillery pieces, as in the actual artillery pieces instead of the crew. I've been very impressed with their capabilities of doing that. So rather than wasting their shots on the very, you know, what's a word here? Multitudinous. The high number of crewmen that the Plague Claw catapults have, it doesn't even, they don't even waste those shots on them at all. Which is nice. Anyway, another Zipbar 42-pounders goes in through the blob of enemies. And our air squadron continues to lead. I do like that while the Dwarfen army is essentially, well, Dwarfen army is minus fast Thorgrim here. Look at him booking it through the enemy. Tend to be very slow. We do have the access to the flying units, which are quick enough and act essentially as a light cav, skirmisher cav, something like that. Although hitting quite a bit harder, depending on the unit. I mean, you can get a lot of performance out of a unit of things like Outriders, whether with grenades or whether with handguns. I think they're probably closer to them in terms of their performance, rather than something like, I don't know, like mounted yeoman archers or one of the light archer calves. Anyway, Thorgrim once again into the fray, way ahead of the rest of the enemy army, or the rest of our army. Felix is moving in to help, and has Gotrek arrived in here as well. Am I just not able to spot him over the rats? No, looks like Felix has beat him into the fray this time. Gotrek moves at 42 speed and a little bit faster than Felix, so I guess he was a little bit busy. 41 kills on Felix, 74 on Gotrek, 221 on Thorgrim. Very nice. Alright, he may not have that Cladbrakak ability to drop lightning on the enemy like Thorek does, but with the Rune of Spite, he's clearly able to still dish out plenty of damage, and he's got a decent amount of splash as well. And ooh, clearing the way for the High King with a Rune of Wrath and Ruin through the enemy blob. There's no regeneration rune, is there? Because once Thorgrim gets 4 items, all 4 of his legendary items, nothing will heal him, will it? I gotta double check, but I'm pretty sure none of the stats I saw give him any kind of regeneration. meaning unless there's a regenerative rune, he'll have stronger stats but be unable to heal. Which is kind of surprising. And he's doing great here. Now 326 kills now, damn. Alright, if nothing else, this secondary battle was worth it just to see Thorgrim tear through the ranks of the enemy Skaven. Not that the rest of the army isn't doing the same, just a little bit slower to the fight. Alright, and it looks like the enemy numbers are very much dwindling. The balance of power is at about 90% in our favor. Most of our units, by the looks of it, are pretty much okay in terms of HP. And ooh, a little bit of a range shootout happening here as the Quarrelers face off against some Skaven slave slingers. Obviously, the Quarrelers are a little bit of an afterthought in Thorgrim's force, as they're mostly here just getting trained up to be transferred to another force. Or possibly Warband evolved. And we don't have enough of a sort of critical mass of them to do insane amounts of damage to a unit. But I mean, other Quarrelers, they're pretty universally useful and will fit into pretty much any army quite nicely once Thorgrim replaces them. Anyway, Skaven Slave Spears are nearly out. Last unit fighting around Thorgrim, at least bounce power is what, like a tiny sliver, 95% in our favor. Speed this up a little bit, and there we go. With that, the enemy army shatters, and Crookback Mountain falls at last. Tretch's gambit of annoying us has, by the looks of it, not paid off, and a few more settlements will see his faction destroyed, and hopefully the defeat trait acquired, forth past Thorgrim. Alrighty, there we go. Even with the without the enemy moving in as a reinforcement onto the map in a big old blob with walls to hide behind, it made no difference. We still suffered no losses. Poor little ratties. Occupy. Alright, let's see what we got at Crookback Mountain. Ooh, Grumbling Guard are available, and Brotherhood of Grimnir, though stupidly expensive. Another Stonemason, always nice to have, and hello. We got a Slayer cult here. Well, that's an interesting one. We got another Gromrel Forge, and we got another Tier 3 Gunsmith's Forge. That's quite interesting. We need the Public Order building here, though. Considering the place will only collect 300 money, we can leave it as non-collecting for now until we get more settlements in here. And we'll probably have to delete one of these, although we did want to have the Slayer cult somewhere. You have... You have the Executioner up. Ooh, but I think this might cause desync, so we probably shouldn't use it. What do you have? Speed reduction, unit mass increase, and physical resistance? Nothing crazy. And as somebody pointed out, these guys do have replenished troops, so we are going to want some Dragon Slayers. As odd as it will be to have Dragon Slayers in certain armies wherein they don't feel like they belong as well, but oh well. I bet we couldn't capture one of these at Tier 3. I really wanted a Thane down here. Actually, I wanted several Thanes down here, but, well, what can you do? What we can do, though, is, let me just see here. I wanted to get the other Flame Cannon for this particular army. Alright, this is our Jartrom army after all, and you know what? We have Grundadrax Bellow, and how about Flames of Herrick as well? Name them both after him. And let's name you... Wait, you didn't have a name already, did you? You did not. Alright, because we're definitely keeping these guys in this army. And you can be old Sootbeards. There we go. We'll need names for the miners with blasting charges. We'll probably keep... Well, most likely keep all 5 of these guys in the fire army, because the blasting charges are fire, and it has been very nice to see them chuck those blasting charges with the 30%, 50% increased range offered by the Overseer. So, yeah, anyway, we gotta hunt Dusty down. That hasn't changed, so we're gonna go... Ooh, wait, I just had an idea. Go here. I don't know if this will work. I'd like to see if we can get this guy in the fight as well, just for the additional XP, and for the potential of, you know, using the runes and stuff. Let's get these runes. We should probably figure out whether we want hardened armor or sharpened weapons, but we'll do so in a little bit. Maybe another point in Rune of Wrath and Ruin? for now. What do you have again? Alright, you're Karaki, okay. Go into this army and then we'll see. If it no longer has the range to reach this guy, then we will maybe just leave and fight without it.
Ready.
Actually, I'm jumping the gun. Dusty might run. He probably shouldn't. We have 16 units, he has 17 units, and his army's pretty solid looking.
Ready, axe.
Yeah, close victory, medium casualties. He's going to stay and fight, which is fine. The Snotling pump wagons are definitely going to be an issue for us. The other units will probably outrange our flame cannons, though not by much, admittedly. Just gotta be careful about our deployment, otherwise we should be okay. Let's do it.
We will have vengeance.
Alrighty, here we go. Dusty may have annoyed us a little bit, and his army does outnumber our army by, I think, 1 unit, but, the dwarfen quality will certainly make up for the difference, and the Grudge Settler units even more so, especially since we now have 2 Grudge Settler flame cannons in here. Freaking love the fire units for the dwarfs. They're just so dang fun. Anyway, we're gonna move forward a little bit as we are going to start the battle off with a little bit of an artillery duel. The enemy has, I forgot, was it 5 units of artillery? A lot. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. And 2 of the enemy grudge throwers or rock lobbers are going to have to be brought down reasonably quickly, followed by the slightly less annoying, well, probably a lot less annoying enemy goblin bolt throwers. I am excited for when I next get to play Greenskins to, the Squig army, obviously, but also do some fun stuff with the goblin rock lobbers. I want to see what an army with, like, I don't know, like 10, or not rock lobbers, bolt throwers. I want to see an army with like 10 of them. Also got to remember to do the bolt throwers in our own army, but not to worry, that's going to be Grimly Coral Seeker's domain. Just gotta get them on field and get Coralers together with bolt throwers up and running. Alright, and there we go. Looks like the first of the enemies have drawn close enough for the old Sootbeard's unit of Iron Drakes to start burninating them. And tree's a little bit in the way, but I still felt like it was better to deploy here, where the water, the disgusting pond scummy, whatever this is, swamp, will slow the enemy on the approach. We've got a nice little bit of an impassable idol, orc idol protecting us here, and yeah, the enemy is going to be slow on the approach. The left flank's going to be in a little bit more trouble, but that's alright. The longer the enemy takes to get to us generally, because these guys are slow and these guys have to loop around, the more time we have to knock out those enemy artillery pieces. And knock them out, we have 4 out of 5 are done for, and the last one will follow suit shortly. The enemy squiggies are obviously in a rampage at this point, moving towards us. Still a couple more rocks coming in from the enemy. It is nice to see an artillery shootout back and forth a little bit sometimes. I usually let this happen a little bit more in the late game rather than the early game, as in the early game it's pretty critical to just destroy all the enemy artillery rather than allow them to fire upon our forces, because we don't have sufficient casualty replenishment rate and we have to make, you know, basically every unit count in every single battle, especially with the rather hectic start that we've had to this particular campaign and this particular start location. But then late game we can allow the enemy artillery to shoot at our forces while we shoot at theirs rather than destroying them. Anyway, looks like the enemy lord has disappeared in the explosions and the flames, and the balance of power has shifted to about 85% in our favor. The Snotling pump wagons have attempted to loop around us, but have this time failed, as the miners with blasting charges plus the runesmith and the same thing minus the runesmith on the right flank have managed to hold them off. And the blasting charges do decently well at knocking out pump wagons as well. Just gotta watch out for them killing off too many of our own dwarf warriors, but luckily for us, while the pump wagons are extremely annoying and an extremely powerful unit for its cost, frankly, I've always felt that the spiky rollers unit was incredibly overpowered, but anyway, for what it is. These are the regular ones rather than the spiky rollers one anyway, so they, not complaining. Anyway. And blasting charges do pretty good at knocking them out since they're very fragile units, but frankly, blasting charges do pretty good at knocking most things out. Or whether they be single entities, small or large, or whether they be blobs. Alrighty, and the enemy army is pretty much done for. In fact, know pretty much about it, as the last attempt to charge through will fail. The flames and the satchel charges will obliterate those units of pump wagons that we could find, and by the looks of it, we've done sufficient damage to this enemy army in general that they're most likely not going to be able to do anything anymore, even as they continue through our territory. Well, our buffer territory, I should say. Alrighty, very nice. A few units remain in the enemy army, but not a lot, and it seems that it's pretty much non-viable now. Probably wouldn't even be able to go after one of our undefended territories, so pretty happy with the result. Can I execute? Ooh, looks like our new cannon got a little bit more in the way of kills, if a little bit less in the way of damage. Well done to the Flames of Herrick. Execute and loot, please. Definitely need that 2.3k. And there goes that rating that this guy was doing, and I assume we can't catch up to you anymore. Just out of curiosity, if we move the... Oh, you can no longer relieve the army, darn. Alright, fair enough. And there's no way that you can reach it. Oh, fair enough. Just get as close as you can, and we'll see if we can't chase this guy down. He could actually take Drippin' Fang's camp, but we're certainly not gonna keep Grimbrindle here. Grimbrindle... We need you to proceed to the Den of the Great Wolves. Can't be leaving that there anymore, so start moving. Alright, that's you guys. Alden Half Hand is... Okay, that's these guys. Okay, you know what? Before I forget... Okay, first of all, let's just check Hero... Wait, no, not Heroes. Lords real quick. Vengeful, no, okay, no rear guard units. Still have that Defiant one, and Sharp Eye. Okay, no Overseers. Alright. Before I forget, you, Alden Half Hand, will get 1 point in Mason. You are also Rear Guard Lord, so Rear Guard. Half Hand, whatever. And then Scory, are you a Rear Guard unit? Yes, alright. So, Rear Guard... Iron Pig, just so that when I go through the lists, I don't have to, you know, try to remember who's doing what and when, etc. Anyway, we will then... want to move these guys. Now, out of curiosity, okay, first of all, King Lun, the 50th. You are going to... Okay, Skullcracker Cavern, Skullreach Cavern, I know I said Skullcracker, I just love the unit, I guess. You guys need to move towards Skullreach Cavern, so jump up. I see nobody can intercept you, so up here and up here. Alright, and all three of you will take this place together. Lovely. Slanesha Giggle. And then down to Mount Squighorn we shall go. Gonna keep the military structures since we haven't invested in them ourselves, and it's nice to have them. Thorgrim, you've leveled up again. And, you've been moving through Grimnir's Airs, and I guess that hasn't really changed. We got the Grudge Against the Foul and the Grudge Against Chaos, the Undead Elves and Mankind. Well, not yet. At the very least. We'll see what our legendary grudges have to say later. Might as well get rewarded armor as well. The physical resistance, the missile block chance. We've been using Thorgrim up front quite a bit. 1 level from Felix. Not a lot. Anything crazy here? Ulcerate Command will be nice, but anyway, let's get you Blade Master for an hour, or wait, or we could just save for Helping Hand. Maybe we'll just save. You know, the rest of you just save your points, at least for now. Vikram Burdrick, keep moving towards World's Edge Archway. Like so. Rearguard obviously doesn't need to move. Braun Grundrickson, who are you again? Ah, yeah, you're this guy. Alright, so you're gonna go into Karaz-a-Karak. And you're gonna sit there for a bit. Ooh, we should probably get the gem mine shaft up and running, and we should probably also replace the dwarf tinkerer's shops with deep mines, because these guys cause us a loss of control, and we don't have the control building here. Also, how are those... Ooh, we're gonna lose this Traumax soon. And I feel like we shouldn't. But I'm not sure that we need 2 up here, but let's get you on field right now, just because we can. Who knows when we get the next one. Expensive though you may be. You, sir, you're going to the Monolith of Vandred, so jump down. And okay, it looks like they are building, but we should be able to cast down the territory reasonably quick decency. Oh, we'll have to occupy it and then abandon it, or else we'll suffer attrition because of general silliness. You have Axe Lord, and I guess that's going to stay the same. I guess we can start moving through Thunderer, although it's not that crazy of a buff. We should also get your Root Marcher. Now let's get your Root Marcher. Alright, what about you two? Just in case we get attacked, I don't think we will, but let's not risk anything. Let's get you Rune of Wrath, and no, let's get you Forge Fire, because it's an armor debuff to everybody nearby, and we may very well need it. You, Thane, you have Ironbeard, let's get your Heart to Hit, and then move at least into a Foe Seeker. Revered Thane gives you Glittering Scales, which is pretty nice as well, which is at rank 10. Alright, that'll be a little bit. Ooh, charge bonus for Accompanying Lord. A couple Thanes in Thorgrim's army will make fast Thorgrim charge hard, too. I like that. Anyway, anybody else, or was that it? I think that might have been it. Alright, we have a little bit of cash remaining. We should probably upgrade the next level of Toolmaker's Workshop in Karaz-a-Karak, as it is getting buffs from the deeps. And that's definitely all the cash we've got. Now, I'm a little bit concerned about this guy and the relatively elite nature of the army here, but hopefully they'll besiege and thus fail, because, well, we can go on top of the walls. You're gonna chase this guy down, you're going where you're supposed to be going, skip, 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 and save the Oath Gold for now, and turn. Oh, nothing from the advisor? Come on, game. Alrighty, well, the Armor of Skaldauer quest is up and running, which is good, and we will want to do that at the same time as we confederate our next, ooh, another Teller of Tales, good. Not on you, though, Morgrim. We want the oh, this guy stayed there? Huh, I wonder why. Well, he's dead anyway. We'll want the Teller of Tales on Rearguard Iron Pick, who only has a Stonemason at the current time. Teller of Tales, more public order, control, etc. Alright, good. I'll keep an eye on these guys. Well, Karaz-a-Karak couldn't fall, but Karaz-a-Karak very much could, if they were to move up there. Anyway, we do have 2 turns until the World's Edge Archway is up and running. We do want to upgrade the deep mines, but we need more money to do so, so we shall see. First of all, though, Joseph of Zorn, kill off Druk Bigagit. There's always a Bigagit. Alrighty, and unresolve. See what that did. Nothing significant. And 900 money, nice. For that small army, and another Talisman of Preservation. We've been getting a lot of these. Go figure. Alright, you're gonna move down here and start heading towards Tusked Sun's Hold, although I would like Thorgrim to do it, but Thorgrim, you instead are going to briefly hit Gribbletown to kill off this little rebel faction. And then move southward. You are going to grab Mount Squighorn, or scout Mount Squighorn. I assume it's full of, yep, it's full of Rictus rats. The rats of Rictus. And Infectique the Vomitus is here. Alrighty, and is this a field battle? It is a field battle, meaning we should probably have these guys come in as a reinforcement. And then, yeah, I guess so. Although if we have this army come in as a reinforcement, the thing that we would be able to do would be keep moving, and thus send them down to Mount Squighorn faster, which would be good. Go figure. Alright, fine, we'll use them to reinforce. Hey, you guys, we'll move on in. Like so, and yeah, decisive defeat. And like so. And then you will reinforce. Alrighty, we'll fight that in a second. I want to take a look at what's going on up here. Is there any new army that's shown up? Not yet. You can enter this army for now, and then I guess... I guess you're gonna sit in Valea's Will here for a little bit, because the public order ain't great, and, yeah. Alright, I did want to switch out of this and into Masters of Stone and Steel for a turn, just to build this. And you're gonna attack Monolith of Vandred. You can't reach Var Camp, and we'll try to bring this place down. Hopefully without taking too much damage, as if we do, we wouldn't be able to attack Var Camp. Alright, we'll fight this in a second as well, and I'm just gonna hope that I don't forget, as I have a bad tendency. You're fine. You guys will attack. I just want to make sure everybody moves where they need to move so we can figure out what battles need to be done where. Alright, you're good. You're good. Gromby, yes. On the way to the Den of the Great Wolves, which appears undefended, we're going to raise the place rather than taking it, because I don't want vision of other factions nearby. Otherwise, I'd probably take it and transfer it to the Darkland Bandits, just so that we didn't have to deal with. Not that I dislike the idea of having furs, which we don't have otherwise, but better not have more factions aware of us right now. And you're good, and then Kinglan. Okay, that's everybody. Alright, so you, whoever's besieging, attack, please.
For our ancestors!
Alright, here we go, our new Grudge Settler army ready to work and destroy some rats. Unfortunately, we don't have the flame cannon in this one to rely upon, but with 3 Iron Drakes against minimal numbers of enemy artillery, we should be okay. And as long as we have that Grudge Settler and Gyrocopter with those Trollhammer Torps, we should be able to destroy the enemy Plague Claw catapults and thus force the enemy to rush us with our flamers, our Iron Drakes, ready to burninate them all. I'm going to deploy here with a little bit of protection for our units in terms of this passable little cliffside. Though it isn't super necessary against this particular army, I would wager. Though we shall see. Anyway, Gyrocopter is going to move on in, fly around the enemy as best it can. And we're going to have to be careful as there is an enemy unit of gutter runners with shuriken here. While the slings are not a particular threat to the Gyrocopters, the shuriken are a lot more armor-piercing damage and just higher damage dealing in general. We've seen them do plenty of damage to Carnosaur riding Saurus Scarvets in the Nakai campaign, so I definitely don't want them doing the same to our Gyrocopters. Being critical as they are, and especially since if we lose a model of these, we can't get them back like we can in Thorgrim's army. Anyway, fire away on those enemy artillery pieces, as we've learned once again that these guys are pretty good at it. And just gotta watch out the enemy range fire. Yeah, just get around them, annoy them, fire from out of the trees, and maybe even drop a few bombs on them to speed matters up. Frankly, if the unit breaks, that works out decently well for us as well. Alright, another bomb drop, another volley, and the artillery crew is actually, for once, more in trouble than the artillery pieces are. Maybe a couple more volleys and the crew will be the one to rout before the artillery pieces are destroyed. Oh! Moved away the Gyrocopters and repositioned them, and their angle changing made them attack the slingers instead, which ain't as great. On the other hand, it opened up a little bit of distance and allowed the next volley to destroy, what, 2 or 3 enemy artillery pieces? Alright, get another one going. Ooh, down to about half HP. We gotta get these guys out of here soon. Maybe 1 or 2 more volleys before we start risking losing a unit. Alright, come on, reposition and fire. Fire at the wrong unit because, well, they fired while moving, I guess, just at the tail end of that. Alright, another artillery piece destroyed. Still very critical to this fight. And there we go, that's a nice volley. 3 more destroyed, and the last one falls, and there we go, the artillery piece is out, and we can book it on out of there. The enemy army is also sufficiently annoyed and is moving towards us, and we have seen this map before. We've got a big old hill for the enemy to climb up, and with 3, count them 3, Iron Drakes, or Grudge Settler Iron Drakes, all with Dig In, which gives them a bonus 40% range, and that's going to be a heck of a lot of fire for the enemy rats to wade through. Gonna speed this up a little bit while they move towards us. We're deployed in such a way where our Iron Drakes are sort of interspersed among the lines of Grudge Settler Longbeards with great weapons here. Like, so I'm not even going to bother having them fire through the gaps in the lines because the enemy actually has to reach said lines, and that's going to be a tall order. Not a short order. Anyway, the hammerers are on the flanks because that's where the most danger is, as in the most dangerous position in the army, just generally speaking. And then our units of slayers are waiting behind the rest of the army, hopefully to chase enemies down, in particular the enemy slingers and all that. Anyway, enemy is nearly at range. In fact, the AI has learned to sort of group up like in front of the firing range. I've certainly noticed the AI doing that a lot more rather than just booking it forward where 1 or 2 units get attacked. So good job to the AI for that. Is that going to help in this particular situation? Well, that remains to be seen. I do notice that the animations of the Iron Drakes aren't designed to go further than, I guess, I don't know, a little bit more than their max range, because the flames kind of disappear and you can't quite see them hitting at max range, but that's alright. As the enemy advances and gets closer, we can watch them get fried a little more properly. There we go. That's got to be a very unpleasant hill to make their way up. And 1, 2, 3, 4 units pretty much destroyed. 5th is about to go as well. The enemy Lord, and now taking hits both from flamers and from our Grudge Settler gyrocopters, which are hovering above and dropping those homing missiles at max distance. They have nearly killed off the enemy Master Assassin. And the Assassin chucking shurikens our way is also a decent way for him to actually get kills, so let's get that thing off the field. Anyway, there we go. Looks like the enemy center line is on the verge of collapse, and as expected, the enemies are rushing a pile of enemies. Well, the enemy's rushing a pile of enemies over on our right flank. We do send some of our Grudge Settler Slayers to countercharge them, but the Slayers immediately lose 10 units. Most likely to the shuriken from the enemy clan rats. Huh, actually out of curiosity, I just want to see something. Slayers have 25 physical resistance and no missile resistance whatsoever, right? Interesting. At least base no missile resistance. Just kind of interesting to see that they have no missile resistance compared to Marauder Berserkers, who have that Weather the Storm ability in SFO that gives them, I think, 40% missile resistance when they're out of melee, and the Slayers get none, but I guess they do have the physical resistance to make up for some of that, but still a little bit surprising. Especially since I'd wager a Dwarf Hide is a little bit tougher than a Human Hide. Kind of channeling Dark Elves here, but anyway, you get the idea. Anyway, the Slayers did manage to at last see off the enemy over on the right flank, whereas on the left flank there are Plague Monks. We don't want Slayers directly fighting Plague Monks, because while they would beat them, 2 unbreakable, fragile, frenzied, damage-dealing units fighting each other is a recipe for casualties on both sides, and we don't want our Slayers unnecessarily damaged. So we're going to send them around and not to go after the Plague Monks, and instead we'll force the Plague Monks to fight the heavily armored hammerers and longbeards instead, and drop an occasional Rune of Wrath and Ruin in the midst of them as well. And there we go, not overcast because we don't need the additional armor piercing damage. Bounce of Power has out. Bounce of Power is in fact fully in our favor now, just a matter of cutting down the last of the enemy unbreakable units. Our Rune Lord has joined the fray as well, whacking away at the enemies. Gotta get those anvils up and running soon, so the Rune Lord can be something of an anchor to the line rather than lost in the midst of the force. Only spottable by the lightning crackling around his rune hammer. Anyway, with that, I believe we are done. The last of the enemy falls and the battle. Once again, ours relatively minimal losses, some to our Slayers, but yeah, kind of expected of them. Alright, there we go. Featherfoot Torque, yeah, that'll come in handy on the various flying armies, and we took a little bit of damage, 22 units lost, mostly to the Slayers, which we barely used in the fight anyway. Unfortunately, it is the nature of the Slayers that in the Grudge Settler armies, at least, where they're you know, without buffs, they're kind of a liability in that they're likely to take massive casualties, so generally we can either use them once the army is nearly gone, or otherwise as pseudo-cav, or they'll just take 2 huge casualties that we can't heal them out of. Does make sense, though. Slayers, once a dwarf takes a Slayer Oath, they generally don't survive their first battle, or second battle. The ones that do, the Demon Slayers and Dragon Slayers and Troll Slayers and whatever. Everybody's a Skaven Slayer, but the other Slayers are the special ones. Anyway. Right, we didn't get any money out of this because, unfortunate. But anyway, and we'll occupy the place either way. Skullreach Cavern. And we got another one of these clan barracks, but I don't think we need it here, and we also don't need to collect the income here, at least not right now. Now, we'll have to loop back around towards these Skaven, but we'll do so later. We had to go down there anyway because we definitely want iron rock. Ah, look at all that obsidian. Feather Photark, no, that's not for you. That's for an engineer and a gyrocopter. Who got that? You got that? Yeah, no. Alright, and then enemy killed in battle. Most likely we'll delete this, but at the end of the day it's providing us garrison, which might actually still be worth our time. You are going to march stance down here, and then it'll still probably take you 2 turns to get to Mount Squighorn, but that probably was going to be the case anyway. You can't reach him. I'm just gonna hope that there isn't another army down here, because we're gonna move you anyway. And I guess we'll find out the hard way, potentially. Alright, we still have to fight the little Norscan fight. Otherwise, we are looking pretty okay. I'm just checking what we could build, potentially. This place needs to start collecting income. -1 isn't too bad, and the provincial instability will go away to the point that we can start collecting the bonus 1,000 gold, which ain't too bad, which I said twice for some reason. We need to keep upgrading everything at Karaz-a-Karak because it's got the deeps, though. If we save a little bit of cash next turn, we could get the engineer's workshop. Still 3,000 gold there, still crazy expensive. Or we just keep upgrading the mines. That's a pretty significant increase in income as well. Right, can we reduce it further? Yeah, we can reduce it even, well, only slightly, but move here. I'm gonna double check whether you have a stonemason. First of all, if you switch to raiding stance, this puts us, it'll give us an extra 300 gold. It's not so bad. We'll do that, and then we will double check that you do not have a stonemason. All right. Now, I guess the question is who? Okay, Gromby, lose your stonemason. And that'll reduce them slightly, and then we'll give you Inspiring Presence and Root Marcher as well. Like so. You're not a rear guard, but you'll serve our purpose here. And I guess double checking these guys again. We're probably not going to use too many of the Demon Slayer Lords, simply because we'll also have Malachi, who'll have Slayer Pirates, and we'll have Ungrim, who'll have all the other Slayers. So, yeah, there's that. We have the Incisive guy as available as well, but he's 400 gold per turn, and that's a little bit too steep for my liking. Alright, let's get this Deep Grung. Is that more critical than this? Yeah, it's a bigger upgrade. It is expensive, but it is a bigger upgrade. And then, of course, once we get the World's Edge Archway up and running and upgrade this, we'll eventually want to switch to the High King's Tribute. Just gotta build everything up. And potentially we'll want to build another Deeps here and here at Pillars of Grungni and Kazed-Urkbavek as our, main money-making province, but at the same time, it's not such a bad thing that it's using the granaries to grow a little bit more before we do so at least we could get it up to Tier 4, because Tier 5 is going to take 8 million years. Anyway, let's fight some Norskins. Probably the first time we'll be fighting them on a non-choke point battle. And, ooh, it looks like they decided not to sail out, so Morkaka Foeseeker will actually, he's found some, or she's found some foes, yes. Alright, should be a fun fight. We have no artillery, but fortunately neither do they. Go. All right, here we go. Finn Arkandrazkelsson has arrived to take the fight to the Norskans, this time led by the Fimir Mirk Morkaka. Morkaka seems to be a very common name for the Fimir matriarchs, which I've noticed throughout the course of various campaigns. But anyway, speaking of names, anybody who's a little bit more familiar with Khazalid etymology, what's up with Arkandrazkelsson? Is it an etymological coincidence that he has the word Arkan in his name? Does that actually mean something in Khazalid? Or is it actually several words and it's Ark Andrazkelsson or something like that? Anyway, anybody really familiar with that aspect of the dwarfs? I'd be very interested to hear what you think of this particular name. Anyway, as usual, we're going to start the battle off with our gyrocopters doing that whole skirmisher cav thing that they do, and the brimstone gun's pretty darn effective at knocking out blobs of enemy marauder horsemen. There we go. They're kind of like the They're kind of like the Grudge Settler gyrocopters with the Torpedoes vanilla variant, which doesn't fire a billion rockets or torpedoes, but only fires a couple, and thus does this, where it knocks about a lot of enemy units. But in SFO, since that unit has a different job, the gyrocopters have been bumped back to, or the brimstone guns have been bumped back into the duty of doing lots of damage to enemy single entity or large entities. In this manner. It is pretty effective, you gotta admit though. And I know many of you I'm sure prefer the flamethrower variant of this that is in vanilla rather than in SFO. Because there hasn't been enough fire units in this particular campaign as yet, clearly. And I get that, I really do. Too bad both variants aren't available. I would have actually loved for there to be gyrocopters with brimstone guns like this, and then just add another Grudge Settler gyrocopter with brimstone gun unit that uses the flamethrower rather than the current one. SFO could certainly do that. Make it a more rare unit, perhaps. Anyway, here come the enemy army. We've got there we go, the Thunderers working together with the fire units now. Very nice, and the enemy drawing closer and closer, getting ready for those blasting charges to fall amongst their line as well. You gotta love the sort of combined arms elements of the early game armies. And of course we will still do several generalist armies, especially since we have a appropriate generalist lord with that Dowie Tactician trait. But we also got to get those themed armies up and running. But for now, lots of generalist stuff. Quarrelers and Thunderers and Iron Drakes and Miners all working together nicely. Beautiful. The enemy army has arrived, and damn, that Fimir matriarch is absolutely towering over the miners and the dwarves, generally speaking, and is actually making her way towards our lord. We are obviously not going to be able to easily fight in melee, so we do have to be careful. But fortunately, there is a Thane nearby. Though unfortunately, the Thane is working on the enemy marauder chieftain, while the guildmaster is going to take hits from that big old bonkin mace of the Fimir. That said, the Mirk is going to get focused down by the Thunderers, a big target over the heads of the rest of the dwarfs, and then slowed down by the suppression from the guildmaster's chain gun there, or minigun, whatever. And there we go. Down goes the enemy lord. The balance of power has shifted to only about 60% in our favor so far. There's still a lot of enemies working on our left flank, whereas the center of the enemy army has collapsed and the right side has collapsed due to the help of the gyrocopters obliterating the enemy trolls and all of the enemy marauder horses. We still have a lot of work to do over on the left flank, especially considering there are 2 units of Fimir stalkers, which do apply magical, armor-piercing, bleed-causing damage. They are fragile, but they can do a lot of work and a lot of damage if you allow them to close. And close they have. Alright, miners just gonna have to do their best to hold them off. All the blasting charges, flames, corals, and bullets riddle the enemy units of the Marauder Hunters with javelins. If you were wondering where our hammerers have been in this entire battle, they went to where the fighting was thickest and where the biggest enemy threat was. The single enemy unit of Marauder Champions. Ooh, somebody just lost a head. Single unit of enemy Marauder Champions was where the hammerers were sent to tear through that thick and heavy armor of these guys. Solid stats, though. They have less armor than we do, but all their other stats are higher than these hammers. Granted, the hammers here in this particular army are unbuffed, whether by the Lord trait or whether by any additional specific red line buffs or anything like that. But unbuffed or not, it's deceptive because they are doing pretty well against the Marauder Champions, who have lost 3/4 of their HP, while the Hammerers are just about down to half. Still having taken decent damage, though. And it is still damage that we do have to be wary of, simply because after this, we still need to move towards the Azazel and the Var Camp. And there we go. With that, the enemy army is broken. The victory is heroic, and it looks like we did manage to see them off. Let's see how much damage we took, but a great fight. Alright, there we go. All things considered, not too bad. Not amazing, perhaps. Still took 163 losses, so a little bit over 10%, but could have been worse, especially considering the enemy outnumbered us. Otherwise, we are going to occupy the place, or I guess loot and occupy the place, because we'll be abandoning it next turn. Yeah, loot and occupy it. I don't know whether we're in range to sack it and then occupy it, so I'd rather not risk it, because if we're not in range, it'll screw us over. I should have paid attention to how much movement range we had remaining, but yeah, just loot and occupy it. Alrighty, and then don't collect income, minus 40. That's fine. We will also delete or demolish this, and then next turn we'll abandon it. And then jump and see if we can't go after Var Camp. We still heal fairly okay here, which is nice to see as well. We'll actually get 2 points, so we could put those into Thunderer and buff up our range units a little bit. And I guess that's probably what we'll want to do here. Although 20% vigor loss reduction is also pretty strong. Is that stronger than 6 missile strength? I'm going to say yes, it is. Obstinacy. Alright. And once again, this guy isn't going to be commanding this army. I just wanted him on field as an overseer while Grimbrindle is busy down south. Alrighty, did that give us sufficient money to upgrade another building here? Unfortunately not. We'll keep most likely the sparring chamber in World's Edge Archway, though I'll think about it. Anyway, I don't believe that we need to do anything else this turn unless I'm mistaken, and we're ready to go next, and also unless I'm mistaken. Will Thorgrim need to fight this? Not a crazy army, but it's also not a bad one. Decent amount of plague monks, rat ogres, which I believe we haven't seen in this campaign yet, and plague claw catapults. May as well deal with it. What about Den of the Great Wolves? Not much there, but at the same time, Grimbrindle's army isn't anything crazy either. Anyway, skip, and Diplo. Ghosts of Pawash. Huh. Well, that's neat. Lizardmen. Could certainly use a lizard ally. And they're willing to trade as well. Well, isn't that just fantastic? And Urson Revivalist nearly ready for that defensive alliance, which would be nice. Oh, wow, poor Boris. Look at this. Boris is just fighting everybody around him, which, you know, does make sense. And the fact that he hasn't been destroyed yet is kind of impressive as well. Anyway, let's make sure he doesn't die. Also, yes, Ghost of Pawash will trade with you. Hopefully you can stick around here. The more of these nearby factions can actually settle the red territories that we don't want, the better. And oh, that might have given us enough money to upgrade another thing in our main territory for a little bit more money. Alright, let's upgrade you, Deep Grung. And then the rest of this stuff will follow suit. Oh, there's also the drinking hall to upgrade. Wait, was it upgradable immediately? It was not. Alright, we'll wait. It won't generate a crazy amount of cash yet right now, but eventually it will make more. Anyway, I believe now we're good to end the turn. Okay, first of all, this guy besieges, but that's okay. More importantly, oh, we got the Warriors Guild up and running, meaning recruitment cheaper Grudge Settler units, which is great, and unit experience gain for infantry, which is also nice. More importantly, I saw this, regional rating. Oh, that's us, damn. I thought it was the enemy, which, you know, would have been indicative of where said enemy is. Oh, I like the rune cooldowns. But otherwise, nothing here is super critical. The better stuff is in this sort of set. I mean, we were going through to interlocking shields, and I think that still has to be the case. We are going to be using a little bit more in the way of dwarf warriors and longbeards alike relatively soon, so we need to get a move on you. We'll head down to the Trail of Fangs. You rather, King Lun, will not be able to reach Mount Squighorn, but that's fine. You're going to... You know what? I can't guarantee that you'll be able to otherwise, so I think we're going to risk March stancing you out here. Close to it as you can get. Thorgrim. If the rebel... the rebel alliance. The rebel army is going to draw out Gribble Town, so I think it might not be worth our time. Because, you know, they'll get obliterated here. A little bit of damage, but nothing too major, and we got to free 2.3k, and the public order here, if not fixed, is a lot better than it was. We'll venerate the ancestors, we'll now get rid of the drops, and the -5 control that we've got here, and... actually, we could not venerate the ancestors, and we could probably upgrade a couple of these territories to tier 2 now. These settlements are, if not quite safe, in a lot better shape than they were before. You are going to proceed still down to Tusked Sun's Hold, which is actually... okay, no, that's not an army. And yes, we will also have to actually build the rest of the units that are supposed to be in this army, but we're getting there. Anyway, Thorgrim, I guess you're going to head down to Warpstone Meteorites, so let's do this. You're going to go into a camp stance and go right to the edge of this territory as far as you can. But still heal up. Like so. And then, yeah, fine, you know what, we'll, for one turn, go for Masters of Stone and Steel. I don't particularly like the public order losses here, but next turn we can build a Karaz Ankor, which will counteract that. You're fine as you are. You will need to approach and just hope that there isn't a rat army that we can't see nearby. You're kind of in the same situation. I also have a good jump, like here somewhere, but no dice. Alright, fine. March stance it is. Alright, and you guys are going where you're supposed to be going. Good. Now, you, Gromby, are going to hit the Den of the Great Wolves. And Valiant Defeat. I don't think so. We'll actually have to fight that, but I mean, we do have a giant pile of miners, so it does make sense that the game thinks that, but anyway. Let's see who else needs to move before we fight. Braun, Grundrickson, just stay where you are, keep doing your thing. Still gonna need public order here, but, well, let's invest in the gem mine shaft. And these will eventually need to be replaced. Do we want to waste the turn to do so right now? Oh! You can reach Var Camp in one bound? Okay, I wasn't expecting that. Well, that's lovely. Go. Let's see what they've got here. And it's a full stack plus the garrison, which will include Chaos Warriors and stuff. Alright. They'll sally out most likely. As to whether we can win the battle, I'm not so sure. But I am sure that I want to try. We will want to delete this then, abandon settlement. We just came here to destroy these guys. Ooh. Watch Surtha Ek move in to reinforce. That wouldn't be so great for us. Is there anything... Let's see. We could get the other Iron Drake unit in here. Because that unit was going to go to Grimbrindle anyway. Though I guess the problem is, what the heck do we replace? We need the Dwarf Warriors. We can't replace one of the Miners. The Iron Drakes are really, really helpful. And we got 14 turns to recruit the rest of these guys, and at least these guys are cheaper to recruit now. Oh, right, and we got the Quarrelers' great weapons as well. The Grimly Quarrel Seekers army is, well, it's starting. It's getting there. Or when it splits off. Yeah, and I'm just not sure what exactly we would want to delete here. Obviously not the hammerers. Everything here is useful, damn it. I guess it has to be one of the minor units. Oh, this one's almost rank 5, but I assume we can't merge it. Alright, fine, get rid of... This one has 14 units lost. I mean, significantly higher level, though. Fine, get rid of this one. Yes. And then we will grab the Iron Drake's Grudge Settlers. Alright. And Razor Standard, hello, that's nice. Grow your forces. Free stuff, I like it. Alright, well that's an additional expense here, but it's worth it, and Grimbrindle's gonna need it. You two. I'm a little bit tempted to upgrade a couple of these guys into Longbeards here. The problem, the main issue that we've got here is that the Chaos Warriors, they will cut through the regular Dwarf Warriors, and it's not like we have a lot of them either. Almost tempted to even replace the Miners with Blasting Charges with more Dwarf Warriors instead, but... I will think about it. You're going to stay there. We'll see how much money we have remaining at the end of the turn and how much I'm willing to risk. Speaking of money. What else can we upgrade here? Ooh, I have been wanting to get that Engineer's Workshop. Ooh, we also have you. Oh, right, wait, you're not a... You're a Dowie Tactician, so you're actually going to lead an army. Ah, darn, no more rearguard units. Still checking these guys, though. Sifbarborn and Sharp Eye, right, no more Overseers. Okay, you guys are fine for now. Gromby and your current Runesmith. We have the Hardened Armor, let's get Rune of Wrath and Rune of Oath and Steel. We gotta fight these guys with our Rangers with great weapons once again. Go.
Let's get about this. I promised Grimnir there'd be a mighty tally, and I ain't one for breaking such an oath. So come on, let's have 'em!
You're not one for breaking such an oath? Are you one for breaking any oaths there, Grimbrindle? Just out of curiosity. Isn't a certain oath being broken the thing that made you into a sort of ghostly demigod type deal that brought you back to life? But anyway, here we go. I'm loving the amount of variety we're getting in this particular episode. We fought orcs, we fought Skaven, we fought Norskins, and more likely than not we'll be fighting Azazel's Chaos Forces as well. Love it when we start moving out and getting more action. Slaneshi giggle. Anyway, we've got that Runesmith who's going to move ahead. The enemy doesn't have artillery, and neither do we. And we're going to pop a Rune of Wrath and Ruin on top of a little unit of Orc Biggins here. It doesn't really do too much damage to them. They're not that blobbed up, and I mean, obviously the Dwarfen Runes aren't going to be destructive compared to spell work, and so yeah. It's going to take a lot of those to make the enemy move towards us, and that's probably not going to work. So we're going to just do it with our Rangers. Fortunately, the Rangers are able to stalk forward. They don't have snipe, unfortunately, though I think we can get them snipe if we... I think the Thanes might give them snipe unless I'm mistaken. So we'll see. Anyway, we just want to move towards the enemy army a little bit. The enemy's going to hit us back with a few volleys of arrows from the Goblin Archers or Orc Air Boys. Looks like Goblin Archers. But the idea was to try to get that one unit of Orc Biggins to rush towards us. We're going to move out of range of the enemy Archer fire, and then lob a few axes their way. Get that bleed application down, get a few enemy units a little bit damaged, and then back off. First volley hasn't really killed any of them, but they're bleeding, they're a little bit damaged, and they will continue following us. And Rangers are fast enough, especially with Grimbrindle buffing them at 54 move speed, that there's no way that the Orcs will be able to catch them, so we can back off and then fire upon the Orcs again. Just keep drawing them towards our army, and I'd wager as soon as we do sufficient damage to this one unit, the rest of the enemy army will move towards us. The Out-Resolve said that this was very much in the enemy's favor and our army would be destroyed. Obviously, I don't think that's the case. We saw the Rangers obliterate the Skaven, though admittedly the Orc troops are going to be a little bit higher quality than the Skaven clan rats and stuff are. Unless buffed by clan Moors, which they very much weren't. And they're backing off by the looks of it a little bit, but it looks like the rest of the enemy army is annoyed, so we're good. Alright, yeah, the main problem right now for this particular army is that we're using the basic miners rather than the blasting charges miners, but, well, they should be able to be equipped with blasting charges via the Warband upgrade rather soon. They just need to win a couple of battles to rack up sufficient XP. Or possibly we could even put Gromby into mining stance and then let him acquire the additional XP for them that way. Not that they're going to be kept around together with the Rangers with axes, as they'll have a different sort of thing in terms of their army. Anyway, here come the Orc line, smashing into those alliance of miners who are just going to have to do their best to hold. We're going to help them out a little bit with that Rune of Oath and Steel, bumping up importantly their melee defense, since their armor at 80 is already pretty decent. The enemy trolls are going to be the first target, as the axes are going to focus them down. A and B, we don't have enough range on the Rangers in order to kill off the enemy units of archers. We just can't reach them from here. But we can certainly damage those trolls pretty heavily. This one's down to nearly half HP. The other one is nearly destroyed, and Grimbrindle has moved out to start on the enemy Black Orc Big Boss, who has lost half of its HP and done maybe 5% damage to Gromby. If you're wondering why there are only 4 units of Rangers here, whereas we have 6, the other 2 were Vanguard deployed, hidden somewhere around here, and they have used their stock to get around the enemy army. We needed something to deal with the enemy Error Boys and the enemy and so that's going to be their job. Looks like a unit of not Wolf Riders but Boar Boys are going to loop around us as well. We're going to try to surround them with a couple of units of spare miners in order to just keep them locked in place while we chuck a few axes their way as well. Alright. And I mean, if we're going with the whole chuck and axes route, we may want to just combine these guys with goblin hewers. I think it'll work nicely as well. I was intending to do an army like that, I believe, in my Malachi campaign, but never quite got it up and running properly before the end of the campaign. Anyway, it looks like the units of the Rangers with Great Weapons that were Vanguard deployed and looped around the enemy have got to where they need to go and have now reached the enemy Air Boys and are chucking those axes at them. I guess that it's an interesting question, though, as to whether it would be more effective to move these guys into melee or to fire at range, specifically against Error Boys. I think against Error Boys we're probably better fighting at range, because especially with the WA active, 61 melee attack means these guys would have been able to do decent damage to our Rangers. Against Goblin Archers, however, I'd wager the Rangers would probably be faster at cutting them apart in melee. Anyway, speaking of melee, the enemy's attempt to breach our lines has failed, and though the nature of fighting orcs is sometimes similar to that of fighting the Skaven, and the enemy will rout and rally, like these trolls are currently doing, they have certainly lost army cohesion, and moving back one by one means eating plenty of axes to each individual unit that tries. They'll kill off a few of the miners, I'm sure, but they're the cheapest units to recruit and to upkeep, and their small amount of losses, minor losses, I should say, shouldn't really matter. There we go, trolls getting brought down. There we go, that troll regeneration just not enough to overcome the sheer amount of axes in the back. Should name a troll Willy. Anyway, there we go. With that, the enemy army is destroyed, defeated, and, well, we did take a decent bit of damage to some of our units. I think that's more than sufficient. It's not like there are enemy units nearby anyway, or enemy armies nearby, at least as far as we know. We'll see. It's a big territory, so the enemy would have to expend a lot of resources sort of traveling through it, which is kind of a reason why I kind of don't want the territory. Alright, there we go. Certainly not a whatever kind of defeat the game was saying it was gonna be. And we will raise the place, Wait. Sacking and then Huh. Sacking gives us way more than raising, so we could sack it, occupy it, and abandon it, and then not take attrition, assuming that we are in range. Huh. I think it shouldn't be like that. Alright, fine, sack it, and stop moving, okay, stop moving, sack it, then we will occupy it. Like so. Oh, I didn't want to occupy it because I didn't want the... Yep. Well, whatever, too late now. That's why I didn't want to occupy it. Well, whatever, we got the money. We'll still abandon it, or possibly just trade it to these guys now. I mean, they're still alive, still kicking. 3 settlements to their name. Probably would be willing to give us a fair bit of cash for it as well, just out of curiosity, in fact. Let's see, this is Agril Migdal? No, this is the 10 of the Great Wolves. Yeah, they'd be willing to give us a lot of cash for it. Would we still suffer attrition out here is the question?
The dwarfs
No, we would not. Huh. Okay, fine. Wait, if we leave the settlement, I'm kind of inclined to trade it right now. Do we have military access with these guys? We do. Yeah, let the other guys raid their territories. Yeah, you know what? Let's trade it right now. Den of the Great Wolves. We're not gonna then do the defensive alliance as yet, because they'll probably still draw us into into conflicts we don't want to deal with, at least not right now. So trade. Enjoy. Lovely, and that's a free big old chunk of change that these guys can hold in the Darklands. Now, what else did we have to do this turn? Other than build buildings, which we clearly have to do. Ooh, we now definitely have enough money to upgrade the engineer buildings, since we've been wanting those engineers. And I guess we can upgrade the drinking hall and the farm here as well. It's bonus growth to all adjacent provinces as well. And yeah, with the bonus from the deeps, even the basic farm makes quite a bit of money. Granted, it is a fair bit of investment, but it will pay for itself. All right, so we'll do the drinking hall, we will do the engineer's workshop, we will do the stonebread bakery. We do want to do the stonebread bakeries here as well, though at the same time I have been thinking about deleting them and replacing them with another deeps. At the very least in one place. We'll start with this place because it has the gem mines, so we'll maybe build this one and delete this one later and then replace it with another deeps building. You can build them in minor settlements, right? Let's double check. Yeah, you can. And costs 6.7k, which is still expensive, though in 3 turns it'll get a little bit cheaper, 5%, not by much admittedly. You know what, maybe hold off on the stonebread bakeries for now, and next turn we can upgrade the mine here and then whatever else we want to get into that, in that settlement. You have the mines, so you're good. I did want to build another Karaz-a-Karak, but here, and that'll be next turn. What about here? We have the Karaz-a-Karak, we could upgrade the place to tier 3, but at the current cost is probably not worth it. As long as we have the tier 1 mines everywhere, they're still collecting 150 gold per turn, which means we're pretty okay. Only thing is we do want another dyes, but this barley field is kind of in the way. Nonetheless, leave it for now. What about this territory? Wait. I checked this territory, though we could build a cheap barley field here. Well, cheapish barley field here, but it's not super critical. I would like to see if there's something that we need to do here. I guess the question is, do we need the armory here? Because we could replace that with the public order building. I think this might be a good time to swap the buildings out. Oh, minus the fact that, wait, do the deep mines have a garrison? 1 unit of miners with blasting charges at the cost of a unit of dwarf warriors. Granted, the garrison is still here. Terrible. We don't have a rating. What is it? No, it's the battle marker. Fooled me again. Collected income, I don't see ratings, so Azazel's faction isn't nearby. Oh, speaking of Azazel's faction, so hold these guys up before we do the potential fight. Rune of Hearth and Home, I think. Obvious pick here. We have the other important runes, but it's an aura and a fairly decent one. Ooh, although the missile nah, the vigor loss reduction is still good. If only we had 2 points to apply both, but it's all good. What about you? I guess you're gonna get Foe Seeker. All the vigor loss reduction that we can do, and then we'll hope that you can win the fight without artillery or anything of that nature. I'm willing to bet those guys will sally out. I'm actually shocked that these guys haven't yet declared war on us, but they're not really bordering us, really. Anyway, do we want another runesmith here? Okay, you have one. This place, this location, will need to split into 2 runesmiths. Technically speaking, we need to move the mustering hall to one of these locations, but we don't have a place where we can build it right now. I mean, and it's already significantly more invested than this place. On the other hand, this place is giving us... alright, let's get these guys the runesmith reducing dudes. I don't remember what their names were. The runesmith's apprentice. Alright, Victrim Burdrick. And then... doesn't really matter. Like so. It'll give us a slightly cheaper runesmith. We'll take the other Karaki, I guess, because we don't have the... well, the unhinged one could work for... could work for the Quarreler army, I guess. Yeah, fine. Do the unhinged one. And then that'll allow us to delete this and then replace it with the public order building, because this place will continue losing public order if we're not careful. I mean, yeah, we could make it 0 by doing this, but then... I'd rather it actually start slowly gaining a little bit of public order. We can always rebuild the place if we need to, as needed. Anyway, I believe now we're ready to end the turn, unless I'm mistaken. Grimbrindle, you can start moving this way and meet up with Joseph of Zorn briefly, and as soon as we end the turn, most likely we will get attacked by these guys. And it'll be a moment of truth to see whether we can, whether this army can survive. Deeps upgrade available. What deeps upgrade? Oh, we can upgrade this. Yeah, we're not using 5,000 gold on that right now. It's probably not worth it. We got the main money-making one, although just to double check, wait. I want to double check what the building options are in the deeps. I feel like there was something, wait. Strategy, no. This generates a decent amount of oath gold, but it's quite expensive. This one generates quite a bit of tradable resources, but we are not actually making a crazy amount of money from trade right now. Yeah, once you get Toolmakers Guild and Construction Guild, this building will generate a fairly decent chunk of change as well. Yeah, wait, it goes from 50, 50, 50, and 50 to 300, and with the buffs that we have, it's a fair bit. This generates a big amount of income, but it costs way too much oath gold right now. This generates income from settlements... well, actually, this isn't too bad. Although, to get there, we have to go through a fair bit of... Nonetheless, 232, 464, 696... it will pay for itself. Alright, we'll build this up in a bit. I know we have 5,000 gold, but I think we might need it in the next couple of turns, so let's skip. We'll, just in case we... please don't steal the hammerers. We'll build the siege equipment. Oh, it'll be very bad if they steal the hammerers. I didn't realize they had aspiring champions. Damn, that's not great. That is really not great. Frankly, there's a lot of stuff that they could steal that would be really bad. I guess depending on what they steal, we might have to back off. Ancillaries. We still have nothing that goes anti-Slaanesh, do we? We've been fighting Slaanesh a fair bit, and we don't have a single anti-Slaanesh hero or lord? Go figure. Alright, well, let's give it a shot. Alright, well, Azazel is not back, and this time they're stealing nothing, but they are still sallying out. Now we gotta deal with the billion warhounds. Chaos warriors are gonna be an issue, the aspiring champions and chariots are gonna be a huge issue, but the enemy has no anti-air, assuming that none of their lords can fly, meaning we should be able to do a little bit of damage with the gyrocopters with brimstone guns before they get there. Anyway, and obviously, time to fight. Alrighty, here we go. Victory will be ours. I certainly hope so, because this is looking like it's going to be a pretty darn tough fight. There's also the major issue of the fact that the enemy has 4 frickin' wizards on the field, plus a regular Chaos Lord, and even the wizards are pretty darn solid in melee. 50-55 melee attack and defense, 108 armor, and yeah, they got a fire and 3 shadow sorcerers. And the issue with this is this. For those that remember the Cathay campaign, the Shadow Lore, specifically Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, is a lot stronger in SFO, and a single sorcerer spamming Melkoth's on many units over the course of a battle in one of the Cathay episodes did manage to basically obliterate several units of Jade Warriors and Jade Lancers by itself, and these guys will have Melkoth's for days. We do have the advantage of Dwarfen magical resistance being base 40%, which is still pretty decent and should reduce the effectiveness, but, well, we'll see. Anyway, the enemy is not waiting. They're rushing towards us, which also isn't so great because we're trying to move into position and actually get our units firing, quite literally, before the enemy gets too close. Our Iron Drakes have first moved into position and are going to fry at least a few of the enemy Forsaken, which lead the charge, which is also appropriate. There's the first Melkoths coming down on our units. And we have something of a decent position. It's unfortunate that we were not able to quite get to where we wanted. I wanted to go here, where we would be able to fire down on the enemy below a little bit easier with our Thunderers. Now our Thunderers will be relegated to trying to fire through the gaps in the lines as the enemy reaches us. But that's the nature of fighting Slaanesh. They're just going to close the distance rather quick. Anyway, our most elite unit, our barely visible in all those flames and explosions, unit of Hammerers, will have moved down and will block off the biggest portion of the enemy army, essentially holding off the flank and allowing our blasting charges to, well, obliterate the Forsaken, but probably do little enough damage to enemy units of Chaos Warriors. All that heavy armor. Same reason why our Hammerers are not taking a huge amount of damage to our own range fire as well. And our army is surrounded. We're in a nice dwarf blob here, or dwarf, well, not quite a dwarf box, because we're not quite in that formation. This army doesn't have the melee available to do such a thing. But we're going to have to do our best to see if we can hold here. Unfortunately, our quarrelers have been rushed in the back. The dwarf, there is one unit of dwarf warriors that is protecting them, though this is the unit that has started off damaged with only 67 units. Going to try their best at this. Our units of gyrocopters, brimstone guns, are also hovering overhead. They've been dropping those brimstone shots at the enemy trolls who are damaged, and at the enemy aspiring champions who are in here somewhere, and have lost about 30% of their HP to fire, which is actually pretty solid. Considering we don't have a lot of things that will be able to easily deal with the aspiring champions, and just generally aspiring champions are such a darn issue to deal with. At least we don't have to contend with the frickin' severed claw. Anyway, we're just in a big old brawl now. Our units of flamers have essentially moved to the center of our formation, are just doing their best to fire through the gaps, similar to the Thunderers here, although it is proving itself difficult. We are relegated mostly to trying to target units that have height to them, i.e. enemy trolls and the Seeker Chariots, in order to actually be able to fire away. Alright, we have also moved a unit of Iron Drakes to try to clear out all those spears and warhounds that have rushed our units of quarrelers. Warhounds are routing and rallying, of course, and the quarrelers are doing a decent job fighting them off, but it also means that they're not firing away at the enemy. Chariots are nearly done for and about to melt away as they get banished and quite literally melt under the flames of the Iron Drakes. And the battle is still very much going very, very slightly in our favor by the looks of it. Fiery Ring of whatever is going through the enemy, but doing barely any damage whatsoever. Hopefully we can get a couple of those just for the fire army, just for the principle of the thing. Anyway, Rune of Wrath and Ruin comes down into the enemy piles of Chaos Warriors, which are just barely being held off by the Miners and Dwarf Warriors here. And we've even had to force a unit of Thunderers into the melee because we just don't have enough units blocking the enemy off. More Chaos Warriors are charging on and taking fire as they do, but certainly they are able to eat a lot more flames than Marauders and other unarmored units. Alright, the bounce power continues to shift in our favor slightly, with about 60, maybe 65%. The Gyrocopter's Brimstone Guns doing fantastic. They've got 30,000 damage to their name, and they've been able to see those aspiring champions off. And this unit has absolutely paid for itself just because of that. And hopefully it won't allow the aspiring champions to come back. The Hammerers, who held off the biggest tide of enemies, have well managed to hold them off, and though they lost half their number and 75% of their HP, and are now fighting the enemy Chaos Lord, the only non-wizard that the enemy had brought, they have also paid for themselves quite nicely here. And I do mean paid for themselves because they are such an expensive unit when they're not under Thorgrim. Alright, our Guildmaster has been forced into the melee as well, but that's alright. We really needed just anything we could find to anchor the line. Same with the Runesmith here, though he's taking damage and probably unable to directly fight a Chaos Sorcerer too easily. However, and that's giving us time to once again reposition our Iron Drakes and fire into the flanks of the enemy. Gonna take a fair few volleys to sufficiently damage the heavily armored Chaos Warriors, but if they're lined up nicely like this, we can fire parallel to their deployment, A, and do sufficiently heavy damage to them, and B, fire on them by burning the enemy Wizard Lords, and thus firing at a single, more easily defined position, rather than along the entire line, which is kind of a little pro tip for those using the unit against enemies where they have heroes interspersed among their line. Because then you can choose where your units are firing, and thus aren't as likely to burninate too many of your own units, because the flame units are shockingly accurate. Alright, and there we go. I do believe the enemy line has broken at last. Most of their wizards have been fried, except the original Lord, and it's now time for the flames to make sure that this wizard is gone as well. There he goes. Beautiful. Ooh, that was definitely a close one. Certainly took a lot of damage to a lot of our units, especially those on the front lines. Several of them routed. The Thunderers were forced to try to hold enemy back, and were nearly destroyed while doing so. And we won't be able to chase everybody down either, but, well, what can you do? That's just the nature of this army, I suppose. The Gyrocopters of Brimstone Guns gonna have to work overtime to hit the enemy in melee. Still, great fight, and kind of invested in Mr. Finn Arcandreskelson now. Ooh, alrighty, a very nice fight, and a rather close one as well, and it was at least in part my screw-up in terms of the positioning of the Thunderers, as I was hoping that they'd be able to fire at least the Trolls and stuff, but they were having a lot of difficulty actually getting drawing a bead on anybody. The Quarrelers also didn't do a crazy amount, but mostly because they were distracted by the piles of doggos annoying them, whereas the Iron Drake certainly cleaned house. The Hammerers held the tide back and killed off the enemy Lord, our Thane, and our Gyrocopter managed to deal with the aspiring champions, which I was pleasantly surprised with, and yeah, very nice. I'd love to take the money, I really would, but I don't, well, we can't guarantee that the remnants of the Varg don't attack us next turn, so I think we have to not chance it as much as I'd love to, and get the replacements, the heals, instead. Ooh, and it was indeed the right move to actually heal up, as Sir Thak is back with in Pog form, and and he's got more troops plus the remnants of Azazel's army moving in to capitalize on well, the battle that we just fought. Unfortunately, it's going to be on the same map, which I didn't particularly like there, but well, we've got no choice in the matter. We're going to have to fight again and see if we can't just survive. We are still quite damaged. Fortunately, the enemy Lord's Inspiring Champion is gone, at the very least. Should be a pretty difficult fight as well. Oh, and those Fimir Stalkers are going to be really annoying because they'll be able to creep up on us. But what can you do? I'm going to quick save this because the episode is running very long. I figured we'd end it after the previous battle, but I'm kind of invested in this right now. But, you know, you never know when the game crashes, so not after an episode this long. Let's fight. All right, here we go. Oh, look at the little feet as they march forward. Anyway, here we go. The vassal of Azazel, the Varg, have moved to defend, well, Var Camp, so it does make sense. And fortunately for them, they've got a few issues here. Unlike the last battle, though we are heavily damaged, and frankly really heavily damaged for this particular purpose, the enemy is going to wait for their reinforcements, meaning, unlike last battle, we are not forced into this position where our thunderers and such can't fire, but will be able to take the position that we wanted in the last fight, and thus have all of our range units, including our thunderers, actually be able to fire down on the enemy as they climb that hill. Second thing is, since the enemy is waiting, we should get more time for our gyrocopters to do the work and hopefully knock out a few of the units, Marauder horses to start, and then following the Marauder chariot. Lastly, while the Varg have a fully healed army, or well, healthy army, they are not full of chaos warriors like the last army we fought, and thus their lack of armor means that the flamers should be able to do a lot more work. Not that they didn't do a ton of work last battle, but even more. On top of that, the enemy army's reinforcements, the Azazel reinforcements, or the remnants of his stack and his garrison, are also a lot weaker than they were from the previous battle, not just because they were damaged, but because the faster units may have escaped, but like our own units, Chaos Warriors are heavily armored and rather slow, and thus those were largely the units we were able to gun down as they ran away. So the enemy now lack the heavy armored troops that they would need to sort of try to get towards our lines. At least that's the way I'm thinking. We'll see if that actually pans out, whether the plan survives contact with the enemy, as it were. Alright, and as Azazel's reinforcements make their way onto the field, the balance power shifts vastly in the enemy's favor, though we have knocked out one unit of Marauder horses, and that one unit of Marauder chariots is in a bad way. Yeah, this unit of Dwarf Warriors is probably going to be non-viable here, but we shall see. Anyway, enemies moving towards us, and yeah, that chariot's out. We're going to reposition very slightly at least a few of our units, because it looks like a ton of enemies, including 2 units of Fimir Stalkers, though, well, I didn't know that they were there. I just assumed when we were fighting, because they're obviously in stock. Are moving in to help. Anyway, here come the enemies, and now Thunderers and Fire Drakes will be working well together. I gotta remember to name a unit of Iron Drakes with Flamethrowers Fire Drakes, because I always call them Fire Drakes anyway. And, ooh, that was a bad idea of the enemy. The enemy decided to move one of its units of Fimir Stalkers with the rest of the line, so meaning that while attempting to fire on the Berserkers behind them, it's the Fimir Stalkers that take damage even while hidden and in stock. There we go. Though, of course, now, by this point, they should be identified. Alright, Marauders getting fried as they approach. Love the sound of the Thunderers firing away. And ooh, gotta remember to put the Drake fire guns into the fire army as well. We don't just have the flamethrowers after all. SFO gives us the Drake fire guns. I think it's an SFO thing. And of course the grudge settlers and engineers. Oh, there's still so many units to build and have fun building lots of armies with. Anyway, here they come. Finally the enemy lord and a few other units reach the distance required for our blasting charges, and the enemy lord will get countercharged by our Thane, who this time is going to protect our guildmaster. A few more volleys of flames point blank into the enemy lord, and the enemy lord goes down. Enemies are still closing the distance. Trolls are out of the picture by the looks of it. And our gyrocopters, unfortunately, have lost one of their units to enemy javelin fire, and we're going to have to back them off as they're down to about 30% of their HP, and they can simply fire from our back lines. Marauder Ice Wolves working together as the vanguard of the Marauders. Probably a good idea for the enemy to have them take hits and allow some of the Marauders to close the distance. A heavily damaged unit of Trolls manages to charge for the just as it breaks and stop our units of Iron Drakes firing, at least for a moment. That said, we are getting a lot more damage on the enemy army in this battle than in the previous battle, both once again due to their lack of armor and due to the better position that we were able to acquire as the enemy waited for their reinforcements. Frankly, it might have gone better for the enemy if the enemy didn't wait for the reinforcements and tried to rush us, as by the time the second and third armies arrived to reinforce, we probably wouldn't have yet destroyed all of the Norscan army if we were forced into a worse position. Still, tons and tons of enemies, as usual, being held back just like last battle by our hammerers, who are deployed where the fighting is thickest. And the enemy is going to take quite a bit of time to move through them. Besides, there is a unit of fire drakes supporting them, iron drakes with flamethrowers. Another unit of trolls will charge through, but the trolls don't like fire and will take heavy damage as they do. And probably won't stick around for too long. Just going to back up our units slightly, hit them a few times with our thunderers, and then get the fire units back into combat. Alright, and the balance of power is about 50-50 now, and we've closed the distance, balance of power-wise at least. Ooh, nice little charge from the Chaos Warhounds. Enemies still putting them to good use, preventing this small unit of Thunderers from firing for a little bit as they are forced to fight in the melee. Javelins coming down on our Quarrelers, knocking a few of them out here. And the Marauder Hunters with Javelins, once again, absolutely not to be underestimated. They're a fantastic unit, and I have a tendency to spam them a little bit when playing Norscan. Alrighty, but it looks like their damage is insufficient. The bounce power climbs to 90% in our favor. The Norscan army has broken, and while Azazel's units, at least a few of them, are still fighting, killing off, by the looks of it, the last remnants of some of the units of miners here, it's still not going to be sufficient. And that's how big of a difference positioning makes, as the enemy army is, despite being significantly more numerous than in the previous fight, and us being heavily damaged, unable to find purchase, and by the looks of it, do worse here than they did in the previous battle. Though still, it is cumulative damage, and all of our units started badly hurt and are now even more badly hurt. Still, this is most likely both the strength of Azazel and the strength of the Varg destroyed, and Finn Arkandriskelsson's expedition has clearly borne fruit. Alrighty, Sir Thag has failed to prevent his lord and master from getting destroyed, at least this turn, and 2.5k gold. 2.5k though. But he's still here, and depending on the way that he backs off, I guess it's more critical that we destroy these guys than the 2.5k gold. I guess. I'm not happy about it, but gotta do what you gotta do. And wiping these guys out will be a major boon to us, as that's another enemy. Even if other enemies take over this territory, at least it won't be multiple enemies generating more armies all the time, you know? So yeah, we'll just heal up, even if it's only a bit. Damn it. Alright, what do we have here? Leadership costs and for control. Yeah, we'll take the control, but a dwarf trade caravan is ringed by goblin wolf raiders. A stalemate has developed, but the foe refuses to relent. Such a local affray should be dealt with by the local lord, but your intervention could speed things up. You're on your own. Clan politics in the region are complicated. Interfering in this local issue could unbalance the situation. Let them sort it out themselves, and then everybody's happy about it. Alright, Rite of Awakening, enemy killed, enemy killed, enemy killed, enemy killed, enemy killed, etc. And you will now auto-resolve this, and let's hope that, I mean, it shouldn't damage us, right? Right, game? Okay, now, okay, 2 units lost. I was worried that one of these guys would go down to like 1 HP, but we're okay. We are going to, I guess, sack it and then occupy it. Yeah, sack it. And then we'll have a full movement remaining, and then we'll occupy. Oh. We could chase this guy down still and then reach him. Alright. I imagine his army can't move and will be destroyed. I'll actually fight this one between the episodes because it's kind of a waste of time since we already won it. And then we'll occupy Var Camp right after. It won't destroy Azazel since he still has the Tower of Karak here, but hopefully after taking out the Varg, we can go, I guess, here and then try to jump here, or play it safe and go back this way, just because if this guy declares war on us, it would be a problem. Also, between the turns, or while the turn was ending, the Steel Fist Reavers also declared war on us, so they're more than likely on the way here, and we'll need to deal with them. Anyway, I'm going to call it here. This is already a very long episode, and more importantly, we fought like 8 battles, and that's gonna take a lot of editing. So yeah, I'll deal with this between the episodes, what remains, and then we'll try to wipe out the Varg next time, and then hopefully try to wipe out Azazel himself next time as well. Trutch is also on the menu, so hopefully we'll be able to wipe him out next episode and continue building up our economy to get it kicked off. Maybe the orcs will go down. We're starting to get our borders in reasonably decent shape at this point. Still have whatever Skaven clan is here, and then this Skaven clan up here, but well, without Trutch running around, without these guys running around, we'll be in, well, better shape. Anyway, stay tuned for more Thorgrim. Don't forget to leave those likes and comments below, especially the threshold, and for the streak on Saturday. All glory to the algorithm, and thanks for watching.